Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast.
My thanks to Ollie Bearman for that amazing intro there. We have used that because we are talking about Formula 2 and Formula 3 on this week's episode of the Winging It F1 podcast. I am, of course, joined by Adam Dickinson and Freddie Coates. How are you both doing?
Yeah, very good. I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to
doing all right, mate. Doing all right.
looking forward to being interrupted by Freddie.
Well, brilliant. We're going to talk about the contenders or
What?
who we're going to watch out for. Sorry, Freddie. Or who we're going to watch out for this year in F2, and then we'll talk about F3 in a bit. Freddie, who are you keeping an eye on this year?
In F2, I have quite a few guys that I'm excited by. It's a very good grid. But mostly Zane Maloney is reaching out to me because I've followed him as a driver for quite a long time and I want him to do very well. So as a fan, I want Zane Maloney to do well. And he really soared at the end of F3 last year, and with a longer calendar with Formula 2, hopefully that can continue, and with Rebel backing in Carlin, hopefully he can do very well. Another driver I think could be one to watch out for after a disappointing first season in F2 will be Dennis Hauger, because he had a moderate season in his first season in F3 and then had a very good championship domination run. So fingers crossed that he can do the same thing again with last year's champions, MP Motorsport, this year.
It's an interesting one, Hauger, because he had three fourth places in the final three feature races. So I think he kind of found something in the last part of the season. And maybe like his F3 campaigns, his first season wasn't quite good, but then he went on to win it in his second season, didn't he? So maybe he can replicate that this year. He reminds me a bit of Mick Schumacher in that kind of sense. So his first campaign isn't that great, but then he ends up fighting it from, and Adam is smiling at me for some reason.
Yeah, no, I'm laughing because that's exactly what I was going to say. It's a Mick Schumacher effect. I don't rate Hauger as highly as a lot of other people, but I don't think you can deny that he has form for this. So yeah, I do. I don't think that he will win the championship because I think it's just such a talented grid, but I do think he'll be a lot, he'll be in the fight. He'll hope in the top five, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see him in the top 3 or 5 there. But yeah, I think there's just so many names there that really think could do something. And I think, yeah, like Bearman, we heard from him at the start of the podcast, and it kind of, I think, similar to what Freddie said about Zane Maloney, really. He started a bit slow in last season's F3 as a rookie, but then came on really strong. And I think he could do the same thing this year. And hopefully, starting from, if he went straight from F4 to FIA F3, which is a bit of a step, whereas a step from F3 to F2 is not that big, and he's with Prema as well. So, I just think there's a lot of things. I'm not sure. Yeah, it takes a lot to win the championship as a rookie. So again, I think that, I'm not kind of going to back him for that outright, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see him win it. And I do think he'll be mixing it up, especially as the season goes on, mixing it up regularly for race wins.
I mean, how good do you think Bearman is? Because say if he is challenging for the title this first season, surely he'll be in F1 at some point if he's that, because he's only 17, 18?
Yeah,
well? So he's super young.
I expect so. He won 2 F4 championships in a season in ADAC F4 and Italian F4, and he's was the first driver to ever do that. And Nigel, I think the second driver to do that is your boy. But and that just, I think that kind of shows where he's at, really. He is, just a phenomenally talented racing driver. I think the one thing, so I spoke to him, there's a piece on Total Motorsport, so with my interview with him, and the only thing that I came away that did kind of have me with a few question marks is it doesn't sound like his partnership with Ferrari is that strong. He's a Ferrari junior driver. He is in Prema, but maybe it's just him talking the classic racing drivers speak of next race, not focusing too far ahead in the future. But it didn't sound like there were that many plans to get him testing F1 cars or kind of get him involved more in kind of the Ferrari machinery. So that's the only thing that kind of is maybe not a concern, but yeah, it surprised me a bit. But yeah, I absolutely think we'll see him in F1. I think he'll be the next British F1 driver, because if you look at his results, I just don't think you can say otherwise. Or I think, yeah, he has just performed so well through his career, and I think he's really primed, as I've said, to compete this season.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. I kind of think you're right. It's going to be difficult to win as a rookie, but it's been done before, and kind of the drivers who have done well in Formula One, to be honest, in the past 5 or 6 years, are the ones who've done well as rookies in Formula Two or GP2. You've got your Russells, Norris, Leclerc, and then we've got Piastri going ahead. We've got Sargent going ahead. So you can have a very good season in Formula Two and get that F1 step up pretty quickly. So Bearman does have the Ferrari link, even if, as you say, it's not as a tighter link as probably he would like at this stage. But if he performs, then that link is an avenue that can grow. It's not closed. So it would open more doors than shut, if anything, even no matter how that link lies. So I think there's a few drivers who could have, if they just have a stunning year this year, could be able to open a few avenues with that kind of doorway. I think there's 6 F2 drivers who are linked with Red Bull. You've got like you got off the top of my head, you got Fittipaldi, Iwasa, Hadjar, Maloney, and
Hauger.
2 others. Hauger, is Hauger still linked? Deruval has been dropped. And
Crawford.
someone else, Crawford,
Crawford.
Jack Crawford.
Yeah, and just kind of
so
following
you
on
do
from,
have,
sorry.
if one of them have a stunner, then they can push their way into what isn't the most confident AlphaTauri lineup we've ever seen.
Yeah, me and Nigel discussed this around the AlphaTauri launch and whether we expect both drivers to be there at the end of the season. So there's that. I mean, and then Alfa Romeo, there's, Bottas and Zoe isn't the most talented driver lineup on the grid either. So I think there are avenues, and even, this could be for Bearman or it could be for another driver, even if they're not linked with the Red Bull driver academy. Then if they do have a stunning season and they are champion, and I wouldn't be surprised if Red Bull did try and poach them and bring them in and get just the most talented driver they can into that seat. So I think there is a window of opportunity, even though there were 3 rookies going into this F1 season. I do think there's a window of opportunity for such a talented F2 grid to really, produce one or several rookies for next year.
Yeah, I definitely think the AlphaTauri seat is the most vulnerable for one, definitely one, if not both, as of Tsunoda and De Vries if they don't perform. And I do think it will be a rollercoaster season for them both. And so out of the current Red Bull junior drivers that we've mentioned, who would you put your money on in terms of doing the best and potentially getting that AlphaTauri seat next year? Because Iwasa seems to be the favourite because of his, he was the best rookie in F2 last year, was most impressive. So would you say it's him?
I would say so, yeah.
I mean, I've already put my money on Maloney, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Isaac Hadjar had a really good season as well. He had a very, very good rookie F3 season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does very, very well in Formula 2 with the Red Bull backing.
Yeah, and he won Formula Renault Euro Cup a couple of years ago as well, and that's the biggest like non FIA F3 or FIA F2 championship out there. So yeah, in terms of like the lower reaches, then there's a good track record. Martin's won it a few years ago. Dino Bogdanovic we'll talk about later for F3. So there's a definite track record of drivers doing well there, and Piastri as well doing well there, and then stepping up and doing well in the kind of higher junior formulas. So yeah, I think Hadjar's one to watch. I've got my money on Iwasa as my favourite for the championship actually. But I think there is it's not a very, I'm not like massively confident on it just because there are so many drivers out there.
You're not going all in.
No, it's kind of picking a name out of 4 or 5 really that all have a very good chance.
Definitely,
and
I agree.
We've seen before numerous times in recent years, drivers doing well in their rookie season, then not doing so well the next, like Schwartzman is a good example. Zhou as well. Zhou Guan Yu, he had a great rookie season. Then the second season wasn't that great, but then his third season was okay. And got that F1 seat. So Iwasa's got to be careful to not fall into that trap. And going away from F2 for a minute, I think the best bet, or my favourite, would be Liam Lawson, actually. He's doing Super Formula. And I think if he wins that title, which I think he very much could, I think he would jump all of the Red Bull F2 junior drivers and get that F1 seat, because I think Red Bull support him a lot. I wouldn't say like he's the kind of favourite, but they have seemed to kind of gel with him the most over the last few years, I'd say. So I think there's a good chance Lawson, and if I was making a prediction, I think Lawson could jump all those 6 drivers.
He's done very well at points, but he's also left a bit to be desired on the F1 support package. He did very well in the DTM when that was a GT series, and he was pulled into that, and he nearly won that championship, if only just for some shoddy driving. To be honest, did he lose that? Not from him. So Super Formula, away from the spotlight, could do very well for him. He's clearly well liked in that structure, because after to be honest, you could say kind of leaving a lot to be desired F3 and 2 F2 seasons where he probably should have been getting a few more results. He is still on the books, so he's well liked and well respected in that junior team.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Lawson. I kind of agree with Freddie. He came onto the scene quite early. I think he had his super license wrapped up pretty early as well, because he won Toyota Racing Series, which is kind of a season opener event in New Zealand that has kind of the grid's ebb and flow in terms of quality. But I think Norris won it and Schwartzman won it a few years ago. So they have had some big drivers come through there, and he won that and really kind of announced himself. And then in his first season of F3, I think he finished 5th, which again, at that stage, it was kind of, he's a raw talent, but a bit of an uncut diamond. And if he can shape that and channel that, then he can be really successful. But I'd say he maybe hasn't kicked on in the way Red Bull would have hoped. So yeah, I agree. If he wins Super Formula, he probably will get that chance. I'm just not sure. Yeah, I think maybe he might have peaked as a junior driver, I'd say. I also have a theory that more people remember him because his name is alliteration. That's not a joke, that is like genuinely. I think he sticks in people's minds more because of that. But he did a was it the Italian Grand Prix? He drove for AlphaTauri in free practice and did decently there. So yeah, he definitely wouldn't be the worst shout in the world.
He did Red Bull, didn't he, as well?
In Spain. Oh, Abu Dhabi. What have I got Spain?
Vips did Spain. Vips did Spain. But yeah, he didn't disappoint from what was coming out of the team.
For me, Lawson, in his first F2 season especially, he had a lot of bad luck, and his actual performances kind of went under the radar, I'd say. And for me, I've seen a lot of talent. He just hasn't had the results to show it. So I still kind of believe in him in that sense.
That was the weird F2 season where they did 3 races per weekend as well, wasn't it? So it's a bit kind of stranger, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
It's easier to go under the radar probably in that.
I would say out of all the Red Bull drivers, Red Bull junior drivers, I would back him the most. But it seems Freddie's gone for Maloney, Adam has gone for Iwasa, so we've all gone for 3 different choices there, which I guess just shows the strength of the Red Bull.
For the AlphaTauri seat, yeah, but not for Formula 2.
Okay, so
if Lawson comes in and wins Formula 2, then
yeah.
When he doesn't have a drive, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that will be like.
But yeah, I think it's a very talented crop, and I think, to be honest, AlphaTauri will be having some headaches. But also, and we shouldn't just assume it's a foregone conclusion that those 2 seats will be up for grabs, because who knows, Tsunoda and De Vries could perform. So.
Yeah, that's a very good point. ART have got a fantastic lineup in F2 this year. Théo Pourchaire and Victor Martins. I think that is, on raw talent, the most talented F2 driver lineup ever. I'd go as far as saying, but I know these 2 won't agree with me on that one. I just think Pourchaire is. I just rate him so highly. There's not much else to say about that.
Do you want to give
as well?
Bit of a background of why you rate him so highly? People who aren't so familiar.
Well, he's got into. I mean, he's only 19 now, and he was in F2 at the age of 17, which very few drivers have ever done. I can't think of many that. Well, you've obviously got Bearman this year, but apart from him, you don't have that many F2 drivers getting into F2 at such a young age. I just think he's got everything. I just think he's got the speed. He's got the right mindset as well. I think he's got the right personality. He hasn't, of course, had the results over the last couple of years. Freddie might have a theory that it's something to do with being an ART, perhaps. But I just really think he has a potential to even be an F1 race winner, maybe even a world champion. That's as far as I'd go with Pourchaire. Yeah,
I'd say,
for me, he's the most talented driver on the F2 grid.
I'd say with Porsche, it feels like last season was the best opportunity for him to win in terms of you didn't have as packed a F2 grid. He was going into his second season, which when a lot of drivers perform their best, and sometimes the third season can be a bit more difficult. So that's the only thing for me is like it feels like last season was his best chance to do it. I know he was still very young then, but yeah, that's the kind of red flag for me, to use a racing term.
He's a fantastically fast, talented, raw driver, and it's just for some reason he's not one in at the top for some reason, because he kind of should have done, and I don't really know why he didn't in last year. I know Drogovic put in a fantastic performance, but it's just kind of there's just he should win this, and if he doesn't win it this year, realistically he doesn't deserve the F1 shot, in my opinion.
Is it a good excuse if I say it's just an F2 specific thing? So maybe it's something to do with a car that it just doesn't suit him as well? No, okay.
It's not really, and I think if you have an F1 feeder series, you've got to do well in the F1 feeder series, otherwise it kind of defeats the point of Formula 2. I think you can develop as a driver afterwards and prove your worth to Formula 1. And I think that's what De Vries has done. I think some drivers have done very well. And I do think at the moment, Teo Porcher probably does deserve his chance in Formula 1, which is why I was surprised he took up a third season in Formula 2, because I think he could have knocked on a few doors from where he was. But it's so I'm torn, because I think he really does show a lot of talent as a driver. I'm just there's always been someone better than him. Why? Yeah. You kind of got to look. Okay, he's always been beaten in Formula 3 and Formula 2. Yeah, he did very well in more junior Formula 4 levels. He did very well there, and that shouldn't be sniffed at. But in these kind of the levels where it's harder, last year he was swamped by Drogovic, and in the year before that, he came up at the same time as Piastri he had he had an injury, but he got the injury and came back and carried on and still wasn't at that level. So it's kind of like, I don't really know where I stand. I really want him to do well because he's really fast. Just for some reason, he's not being fast enough.
Yeah, it's a weird one with Porsche, because we could be sat here at the end of the season and, like Nigel said, he is just so talented, and he could just walk it and win it at Canter. We were all like, why did we ever doubt it? But as Freddie has outlined, there are those reasons for doubt. So yeah, I'm just kind of not really sold there. But like I say, I would not.
You've lost a little bit of faith, is it?
Yeah, kind of. It's one of those. I mean, like I said, when I predicted Iwasa, there's like 4 or 5 drivers that I could absolutely see winning it, and he is one of them. He's just not the first out of that pack, I guess.
Who are the other drivers, if you've not mentioned them already?
Well, Iwasa, Bearman, Martins. How many is that?
That's 3.
3 plus Porsche. That's 4.
Okay.
And then like Doohan, I guess.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Do you
and
agree
Enzo
with that list,
Fittipaldi as well? Enzo Fittipaldi is just a bit of a like wild card for me, but he could be in there as well.
I'm pretty similar with them being all front runners, and I do think there's quite a few other drivers who could cameo quite a lot, which then therefore makes it not a cameo, makes them guest appearances, be recurring characters in the series. In that most of them all have quite a few legs to stand on competitively. I know further down the order you've got people like Vasseur, Boschong, Roman Stanek, Clement Novalak, who've all performed well in the past, and some in F2, some in F3, and could very easily perform very well at the front end of an F2 grid if they're in the position to do so. So there's quite a few people who could really have an impact.
I thought he was going to say so, Adam. Never mind.
No, I think I was just kind of, there are some, I guess, a bit more like career junior Formula drivers that Freddie's just mentioned. But since I mentioned him, I will just shout out Jack Doohan. I think he's annoyingly a year too young, because he would have, if he was going into his second season of Formula 2 last year, I'd say he's in, he would definitely be in a good position to challenge for the title. And with what happened with Piastri, then there would be a seat open for him at Alpine potentially to push for. So it's a bit, I think it's, really bad luck really that the, Gasly to Alpine finally happened just in the season before he'd, I guess, expect to be challenging for the title. So I think that's a bit of a rough break, and he didn't perform amazingly in testing, but he, that kind of only tells so much. And he showed last season that his talent is shown in F3 as well. So yeah, he's probably towards the back of my main contenders, but I still think he is there.
Yeah, I've got big problems with the Alpine Driver Academy, not just with the Piastri thing, but in terms of the way they've handled a lot of the junior drivers. And speaking of which, Victor Martins, I think, is another huge talent on this year's F2 grid. I think I spoke about it, was it last year or the year before, where I kind of picked him out of a bunch when we was talking about junior drivers. I think he's very fast. I think his racing as well, during the races, I don't think he quite has the one lap pace perhaps, but I think in terms of actual race pace, I think he's very smart. He's a very smart driver for his age. So that's why I think the ART lineup, if they have the right, I guess, engineers and can find the right setup early on in the season and tune the car the right way, I think both drivers will be challenging for the title almost certainly. Have you got any thoughts on Martins?
Well, he's the reigning F3 champ, isn't he? Albeit in complicated circumstances, which is the way it was won. But for the same reasons with Bearman and Maloney, he should perform very well because he's not been bad in a racing car. End of. He's always been good. So,
Adam? I just agree with that. Really, he's won championships before F3 as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there. And yeah, like we said, ART are just such a strong lineup with him and Porsche, all French lineup. So yeah, it's kind of he feels like he's got the talent to go all the way. But as we keep saying, there's a lot of drivers like that on the grid. So it's just, it will be, if he can finish top 5 this season, it will be impressive, considering he's a rookie.
Yeah, a lot of this has been driver is good. Hopefully, driver will be good, and it will be good for driver. That's been a lot of this pod, but I think a lot of that does ring true for the majority of the drivers in the Formula 2 field this year, which is exciting. And they go to Australia. That's fun.
Yay!
Yeah.
So we won't watch those races.
The calendar isn't as bad as it was, well, certainly 2-3 years ago. But there's still a few big gaps in there. But anyway, I won't go on.
I mean, to be fair, it's not. It's just the big gap at the end. Like, apart from that, it's not too bad. But it's just they have this stupid 2-month gap, 3-month gap between,
which they didn't used to have. They used to. F2 had a standalone event back in the day, and they would do WEC events and things like that, and would do a season. And Formula 1 has obviously brought it more into their stable, understandably. But if they're going to do that, they kind of need to not have this big 2-month gap. And I think either you let the series be, competitive all year round, rather than having then just like a joker round at the end where the championship is decided, or you frankly bring it earlier and have a big old event where one of them can be, it's an F1 race, but it's also the big F2 finale round that means they can have their time to shine. But there's just a reluctance to do that.
I mean, F3 looked really good. It has the 2 non-European rounds in Bahrain with the season open, then going to Australia, which was really exciting. But then it finishes at Monza at the end of the European leg, and that's that. And that just is a much kind of tighter, neater way of doing it. And F2 could, if they do want to extend it a bit longer, then they could finish at, Singapore or something like that. And that'd be a great grandstand event. But just having this 2nd of September to the 25th of November is the gap. So nearly 3 months is just insane. It's just absolutely insane. To have it going in for the championship decided when you've got drivers' careers and potentially F1 careers on the line as to whether they can get super license points. It's just bonkers. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we've spoken about this before. Where say well, we saw it last year with Logan Sargent. He was, going to get the Williams seat. But then, say if the final round he had a horror show and didn't get the super license seat because of that in Abu Dhabi. So didn't get a Williams seat because he didn't get the super license words. Then it would have just been not great, and you can stop this by having a smaller gap in between the penultimate and final round. So, it's just something that should change, but I don't think it will, unfortunately. So that is the F2 rounded up. We're going to talk about the F3 front runners and contenders this year. It's not the best F3 grid, I think it's fair to say. Gregory. What was there? Gregory Saucy. Gregoire. No, I'm calling Gregory. Gregoire Saucy. I've booked up his name already. Gregoire Saucy topped the testing times last week. Who do we think is going to challenge for the F3 title this year?
I'll throw Dino Peganovic out there straight away. He's at Prema. He won Formula Renault Euro Cup by Alpine, or whatever it's called now, Freca, last season, and he's with Prema this season. So I think he's definitely a name to watch. He's been part of the Ferrari Driver Academy for a few years now as well. And then his teammate, Prema Zacco Sullivan, who was in F3 last season, finished 5th. I didn't write that down beforehand, and I'm floundering a bit, but yeah, finished a bit lower. But yeah, finished in the top 10 of F3 last season, and he's got the step up. He's a Williams Academy driver as well, and obviously they've just had Sargent go in. But yeah, I think I don't expect him to win it, but I think just, being in Prema, having that year's experience, and he does have talent, then I think he'll be kind of up there throughout most of the season.
I mean, with Formula 3, you do have to just go, are they a Prema driver?
Yeah.
They will be able to win races. And so with O'Sullivan and Beganovic both also proving themselves as fantastic drivers elsewhere, then that helps them. Paul Aaron as well, Mercedes junior driver, another Prema driver, completes that team's lineup. And, those three should be ones to watch. Other F3 teams that tend to do well are Trident and Carlin and ART. ART obviously won last year with Victor Martins, and they've got, as was said, Gregor Saucy. They got Caelan Frederick, who's done some junior series rounds pretty recently and has performed well. Carlin, you got Ollie Gray, who's come from the UK, come from British F4 and Italian F4, I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And did well in both of them, so he should do all right. There aren't that many that stand out, unfortunately, to me.
I think Kyle Collette could be a bit of a dark horse this year. I don't know why. I've got a feeling.
He's kind of been around for a while. This is the thing. There are a fair few drivers who've been in the lower reaches for a few years, and that's a thing you can knock on a fair few. To be fair, that there's just not. That there's a lot that maybe their momentum has gone a bit stale that they had earlier in junior series. But yeah, I mean, Kyle Collette, he's had 2 years in F3 already, and he's improved by one position from 9th to 8th to last season. So yeah, I mean, he could be there. I think I'd be surprised really if he is top 5, to be honest. But it feels really, really open outside of I'd say Beganovic again, but outside of that, it feels really, really open who could be filling really kind of 2nd to 10th for me.
Yeah, and realistically, does it get into F1? Probably one or two of these drivers have a very good chance getting to F1. The others are just, trying to do something special, I guess, to try and get onto the F2 grid and then impress an F2, etc. So yeah,
yeah,
I think
there's a lot of drivers here who could realistically have very good professional racing careers, and
yeah,
I think, to be honest, they should all be using that chance. And I think a lot of them are. I mean, your Sebastian Montoya's, Johnny Edgar's, Franco Colapintos of this world, who are good drivers and have performed well, can all use this to really, showcase their talents. But whether you think they'll be F1 standard in the future is another question. But I think they could all definitely use that as a shop, a window shop for them.
Colapinto is an interesting one because he's Argentinian and he does seem to have a fair kind of backing just as an Argentinian driver. There's not many of them around. He's in the Williams Academy as well, and he has quite a big
He did well
fan
last year.
base.
He did well.
Yeah. So he'd be one. I think Gabriele Mini as well for High Tech. And High Tech aren't the best team on the grid, but I do think he's done well. Again, Wood Italian F3 was second in Freca last season. So I think he has potentially the talent there to really make a push and be in that top 5. So he's someone I would maybe highlight as having a bit more of that kind of pedigree behind him. But yeah, like we're saying, there's a lot on.
Yeah. I mean, one driver who I would have loved to have seen in F3 this year, and I think he should have been in there, is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. He has just won the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship in his first season. This guy, he is an absolute super talent, in my opinion. I wrote an article for Total Motorsport about 4 or 5 weeks ago now, and he's just sensational. The karting career, he's had the way he's impressed in F4 over the last 18 months. He's going to be, I'm talking about Hamilton Verstappen levels here. I think he's going to be outstanding, and I feel if he wasn't with the Mercedes Academy, if he was with Red Bull, I think he would be in F3 this year. And then if he wins F3, maybe could have even been in F1, perhaps. But I think with Mercedes, they are going to take it step by step.
Are you saying if he won F3 this year, he could be in F1 next season?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how good I think he is.
I think that's a bit bonkers, to be honest. But yeah, he
has happened.
He is supremely talented, and I think if he was in F3 this year, then he would have a good chance of winning. So yeah, he's there. He's also DM'd Nigel. He slid into Nigel's team.
Yeah,
so
that's why Nigel rates him.
No, he saw my article. He saw my article and messaged me, and I might be talking to him in March. We'll find out.
Is he added to your interviewee list, or was he on it already?
No, I didn't have. Well, with motor racing drivers, I didn't have any specific names. This is a side thing, but I've got a list of sports people I want to talk to. But yeah, and on Antonelli, what are your thoughts on him? Because I mean, you probably won't rate him as much as me, but I'm guessing you both rate him very highly, obviously.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what Adam just said, and I'm agreeing.
I
Why?
would be like shocked if he was. Sorry.
Just because of why. It's kind of like he's performed very well in what he's performed in, and he's won championships, and will likely win more championships in the future.
Would you be surprised if he isn't in F1?
I don't know.
Okay, that's interesting.
You can't be judging a driver who's not even got to international Formula 3 level and be like, oh, I'm surprised you wouldn't be in F1 yet. I think we need to give it a bit of time.
He was karting 15 months
ago. But with like Verstappen, people were talking about him well before
because he had an F1 test.
What, even before that?
He had F1 test and was given F1 backing and was widely talked about as like when he's at this age, he will be driving in Suzuka this year. We haven't had that with Antonelli. If this year Antonelli is getting FP1s and stuff like that, then maybe we can give him the talk like you had with someone like Ocon, who when he was at F3 level was gallivanting with F1 teams and with junior programs and stuff like that. So as Antonelli is in a junior program, maybe when he gets behind a wheel we can talk about it. But he's not at that stage yet. There's not a conversation about him doing an F1 test. There's not a conversation about any of that. So in this Formula 3 podcast, we could talk about a driver who's not in Formula 3 because Nigel likes him, or we could talk about about the drivers in Formula 3. But I do think Antonelli's good, but I'm not gonna say he's gonna be an F1 driver based on the fact that he's won a regional series in Europe.
Okay, yeah. Are there any other F3 drivers?
Yeah.
Oh, go on, Adam.
Yeah, well, there's one non-F3 driver as of yet, which is Luke Browning, who I really liked. He won GB3 last season, and he's kind of had the road less travelled. Really, he was in British F4 in 2019.
Well, he's had no money.
It's kind of a nice way of saying that, but yeah, he just really worked on, really just deserves this shot in F3, and there is one seat left at high tech, and he has been a high tech driver in his British racing, so it would seem that he will
They
be.
did a test in high tech.
Yeah. So
And
yeah,
was in
with
the
all of
top
that.
10.
So yeah, he is someone who just, I think really deserves that shot. I've interviewed him 3 times now, which is fun. And me and Freddie have interviewed him as a joint once. So I just really like him, and he'll be someone, if he is there, then I'll be supporting. And someone else for like neutrals to support is Johnny Edgar, who won German F4 in 2019, I think, and was, he's not had the best results, but he missed 2 rounds of last season with Crohn's disease, and he was in the Red Bull Academy, and he was I guess not one of the heavy favorites, but certainly up there going into last season's F3, and he's had the Crohn's disease diagnosis and had to battle that for a lot of this season, but he is back this season. So again, he's someone that I am hoping can do well.
That was really harsh,
Browning.
I thought, for Red Bull to drop Edgar. But yeah, sorry, Freddie.
When the costs involved
right.
are so relatively low, then I thought that was really rough. But
It is rough. But I was going to say I have a vested interest in Browning because I work for the company that operates GB3. So naturally, I'm going to support the GB3 champion because job. Well, yes. Buys that I'm paid for. It's fine.
I can't really do the same with Eurosport for motor racing. I don't think. But yeah,
I think to be honest, we're all at the stage where if there's drivers who've been decent with us, we can like them.
We've interacted with,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess
and considering I got in Stoffel Van Dorn's way once, I can't believe he's not back on the Formula One grid. Anyway,
he got in his way. Go on, explain that.
I just got in his way. It's just like,
Where?
oh, sorry. It was in the Hungaro ring.
Okay.
But he was walking. I was just like, oh, sorry. He's like, oh.
So that's why he lost his seat in that year.
two people being awkward around the time of the driver market happenings.
Anyway,
in 2018.
Back onto the podcast. I think that is the junior segment done. We are just going to touch on F1 testing because it is coming up, and I'll start on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 8.5 hours of running each day, 4 hours in the morning, 4.5 hours in the evening. It's just about getting as much mileage under your belt. Try not to break down. Definitely don't crash.
Turn up with your car on the first day.
Yeah, do that. That would help as well. And then once you do enough mileage, then you can go for speed, find the right setups, turn up the wick, and that's testing basically. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, that's what I'm going to do.
I will add Drive to Survive comes out on either Saturday or Sunday, and I'm looking forward to it. It's contentious, and I think more and more people are criticizing it. But I think certainly if you look at the impact it's had on F1, just look at the amount of fans that it's brought in, and look at the other sports that are trying to recreate it. There's been tennis, cycling, both kind of either done or doing series that are coming out that I know off the top of my head, and I think you can't understate the importance of that. And last season I did, the stuff around the title fight I always thought was going to be quite Netflixy, Hollywoody, and it was. But actually I do really enjoy the other things, like the episode on Haas or the episode on Sonoda. I thought were just really good. Seeing that insight into drivers low ground the grid is what I like about it, and really where they had their strength early on when it launched and Hamilton wasn't involved. So yeah, I think it does get a lot of criticism, and I think I maybe didn't praise it as much as everyone else did a few years ago, but actually now I am. I think people are going a bit too far the other way. So I'm looking forward to watching it. Obviously, you don't have to watch it. Nigel won't. But yeah, I'd say just watch it with an open mind, and you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's a nice addition to F1 fandom, I think. If you're an F1 fan, it adds nice stuff to it. Naturally, you get annoyed at things, but you can also really appreciate some of the insights. It's out Friday the 24th. That's when it's out. Yeah, so it'll be out this weekend. So you can watch it instead of testing.
No, don't do that. Watch testing instead. No.
Wow, watching testing. Why is there this obsession with watching testing now? It's fantastic. It's great fun.
I get excited with testing, especially the final day. I get really excited.
Yeah, I do get excited when you get a sort of clear run of okay, well now these are the times that we've been telling ourselves not to care about. We now need to kind of try and care about them and try and not care about them at the same time, and then wait for clever people who have the time to do all the kind of fuel corrected and tire corrected runs and add all of that together. And you can get a relatively decent competitive picture of usually who's way off and who's way in front. The middle bit's where it's really exciting, I find. And you get sometimes like, oh, Haas will be the fourth best team, but Aston Martin will also be the fourth best team, but they'll all both be last. And all of that is just great fun.
For me, I'd like sports that you can just have on in the background. I like test cricket and cycling for that, in that you can just kind of have it on and be, like vaguely checking in on it, but don't have to have your eye on it for the whole time. And obviously normally F1 races aren't like that, but testing and pre-practice is, and especially testing. I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to having a bit more of an idea of where the teams are for when we do our predictions. But clearly I won't have an idea of where the teams are, because Nigel always hammers me and Freddie, to be fair, they always have the same predictions and I don't, and they're always right. So, maybe I won't have much of an idea as where the teams are as I think. But
that's nice. It's fresh.
It's only because, the last 2 years anyway, 2021, 2022, I've like super analysed like the long runs and stuff. That's the only reason why my predictions are good.
Yeah. So, to be fair, last year I was on spring break in the middle of testing and did about a combined 20, maybe not 20. Actually, it's probably
this year I have
15
a job.
hours of bus driving, or being on a bus and seeing two cities. So I wasn't really eye on the ball as much as Nigel was. But this season will be the redemption.
But you still had like Houghton and Russell in the second and fourth, Mercedes winning a constructors, which it didn't make any sense.
I was sleep deprived. Okay, it was.
I know.
Well, because you're staying up watching testing because it was on in the middle of the night for you.
There's too busy traveling the whole continent of North America.
This year's the redemption arc, though. This year.
Redemption. We'll find out.
This year is the year I'm probably going to just focus on testing from a kind of just looking at the time. So it'll be the other way around. I'll be like, Fernando Alonso world champion. No, Lance Stroll world champion, of course.
But it's always like, regardless of if it's like ranking the driver lineups or grading the drivers or giving a preseason team ranking, then you and Nigel are always nearly identical. So it doesn't matter. You just have to go with what you think, and Nigel will go with that as well. And because he super analysed it, then it'll be right.
I tend to give an opinion and Nigel backs it up with facts.
We like giving our opinions, and we hope you enjoy listening or watching our opinions as well. We will have testing review thing and a predictions review preview, F1 season preview thing as well next week, so stay tuned for that. Podcast, or things, podcast, whatever, same thing. So yes, until then, thanks to Freddie, thanks to Adam in his hoodie thing that Freddie likes as well.
It's
maybe
nice
you
jumper.
like it if you're watching on YouTube. And I'll thank myself as well, and thanks to you for listening and watching.
Thank you, Nigel.
Until next week, we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Nigel.